Hey guys, welcome to the Liberal Hive Mind. It looks like the anti-Trump deep state operation is nearing full collapse. In a last-ditch effort of complete desperation, they tried to throw it all at the guy. Everything in the frickin' kitchen sink. But of course, as you know, it's all failing. Fani Willis once again F's around and finds out the judge drops multiple charges in the Fani Willis election interference case. Another massive legal win for Donald Trump and a big fat L for Fani and her puppet masters. Let me update you guys on what's going on. We got some stuff to get into, so let's roll the tape. Alright folks, so let's first start off with this article right over here from the Conservative Brief. Georgia judge dismisses some charges in Trump election case. The Fulton County, Georgia judge presiding over District Attorney Fani Willis's case against former President Donald Trump and more than a dozen co-defendants has dismissed some of the charges against all of them after ruling the state failed to provide sufficient justification for them. Judge Scott McAfee quashed 6 counts against Trump and his 18 co-defendants. Reports said on Wednesday, writing that there is not sufficient evidence of solicitation of violation of oath by a public officer. The court's concern is less than the state has failed to allege sufficient conduct of the defendants. In fact, it is alleged an abundance. Typical legalese, legal jargon that kind of makes sense, you have to decipher it. However, the lack of detail concerning an essential legal element is, in the undersigned opinion, fatal, McAfee wrote according to Fox News. So I guess in layman terms what he's saying is they failed to provide sufficient evidence for this charge, and therefore the opinion is fatality for Fani Willis's pathetic little bogus charges. As written, these 6 counts contain all the essential elements of the crimes but fail to allege sufficient detail regarding the nature of their commission, i.e. the underlying felony solicited, he added. And so there's just a little teaser. It seems like the judge isn't playing ball at all. You know, what we heard from Democrats is that all these prosecutors bringing these cases are of the highest legal caliber, people with the utmost credibility, yada yada yada. But already we're poking holes in that narrative as some of the key charges in supposedly the Democrats' most foolproof case, the fake electors scheme scam, are getting thrown out by the judge before the trial even commences. Quote, solicitation of violation of oath by a public officer. You know, I'm assuming the charge here was that Donald Trump and his other co-defendants were soliciting public officers to violate their oath. Ooh, fake electors scheme. Donald Trump was attempting to intimidate public officers to install him as fascist king of America. Sounds like a nice story, and I'm sure Bill Maher would be willing to repeat the headline on Joe Rogan's podcast again. Don't you know the thing? You know the fake electors scheme thing?
He's charged with actual crimes. Criminal intent to obscure, I forget what the actual name of the law is, but criminal intent to basically steal the election or to coerce people in the states from, I forget what it is. And then there's one forgery, which has to do with the electors scheme. Criminal intent for...
What is the forgery?
That's the slate of electors he was putting forward, the fake slate of electors. And then there was...
You know, it sounds like a nice little conspiracy. It's a great Democrat talking point, great rhetoric. But as to the credibility of the allegation, well, to be very frank, it got thrown into the freaking trash without hesitation by the judge. Great news, and even better news, is that this is just the start. The judge isn't even finished his final decision post-hearing closing arguments. In other words, there's still more to come. It seems as though some people on Twitter are under the impression that the judge's deliberation is concluded, but this is just a start. It's a taster, an appetizer. The next decision, which is expected in a couple weeks here, well, actually, you know, let's let MSNBC present the story in complete shock and explain the next step.
Breaking news, Blaine, we wanted to ask you about the election there in Georgia last night, but we just got a filing from the court there in Fulton County. What can you tell us?
Yeah, I've just obtained that filing, and basically what is happening is that Judge Scott McAfee is dismissing several of the charges here in Georgia against former President Donald Trump. 6 of the charges in this order. The charges so far, and I'm still making my way through the judge's ruling right now, but appear to do with solicitation of violation of oath by a public officer. Those were certainly some of the charges that he was facing. Other people that were named, of course, Donald Trump, Rudy Giuliani, Johnny Eastman, Mark Meadows. And so this is certainly notable because the former president was facing a number of charges, but to have 6 of them removed is notable. Now, it's important to note he's still facing charges here in Georgia, still facing charges in Fulton County. We're also still waiting on a major decision from Judge Scott McAfee as to whether or not Fani Willis can continue to remain prosecutor on this case. This is not that decision. So to see this decision from the judge to come out this morning is a bit of a surprise. I've reached out to Trump's Georgia attorney here, Steve Sadow, who, of course, has been representing him as the lead attorney, to see if he has any comment. We've also reached out to the DA's office to see if they have any feedback or plan to push back on this ruling by the judge.
The next step for the judge is making the decision as to whether or not Fani Willis gets to stay on the case. And what's the most important aspect in making that decision? Well, the judge has to consider the likelihood of whether or not Fani Willis acted the way that she did with the intent of benefiting herself. Now listen, we could get an unexpected ruling and the judge ends up siding with Fani Willis, but considering how aggressive he is with this early decision to drop all of these charges, it doesn't seem like that's going to be the case. There's clear, obvious evidence that Fani Willis benefited financially. There was a clear conflict of interest. Everybody knew it. Everybody saw it. We saw text message evidence presented in court where people were essentially telling her not to do it. Don't hire the guy, that it's not going to look good. She ran an entire campaign claiming she wouldn't act in that manner and then did exactly that. She betrayed public trust. So obviously, her defense of, well, you gotta trust me, I didn't do it, simply cannot be trusted. I'm assuming the judge is probably thinking something along those lines. Although it's really hard to say, but my perspective is that if Fani Willis doesn't get removed here, I'd say that'd be shocking. That'd be a curveball. Even legal analysts who work for all the big left-wing networks out there seem to be saying the same thing. Game over, legal analyst declares Willis case against Trump dead after courtroom revelation. Legal analyst Caroline Polisi flat out declared that new evidence and testimony refuting Fulton County District Attorney Fani Willis's claim regarding her relationship with her colleague was, quote, game over for her. Pelosi, who frequently appears on CNN and MSNBC, did not mince words when she discussed the Fulton County DA's terrible week in court.
Joining us now, Charles Coleman, civil rights attorney, Caroline Polisi, federal and white-collar defense attorney, and senior FBI official, and of course, former U.S. Attorney Chuck Rosenberg, who's going to be with us in just a minute. But Caroline, we've all been watching this, and it's so legalistic centric and yet so important and fascinating.
Right. Don't let the legalese fool you. This is epic. This is monumental. If things are going in the direction we think, Fani Willis lied to the court, it's game over for her. She will be disqualified. If they had a relationship prior to when they represented to the court, it's a huge deal. I can't overstate it.
I'm assuming that what's probably going to happen here, what's probably going to follow up in a couple weeks, is we're going to see the judge remove Fani Willis from the case. And then, of course, that's going to create delays on top of the current delays. In other words, either the case is going to fall apart or the case won't happen ahead of election. In other words, another Democrat deep state witch hunt bites the dust. I'm feeling pretty good about it. That's what I got for you guys on this one. If you enjoyed the video, make sure to leave a like and possibly subscribe. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you on the next one.